Hi Russell, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Hello everyone out there. We're just doing another little news round for Gunsmith. I know it's been a long time. My apologies. I do want to introduce Russell. Some of you may have seen him on the Junk Punk Discord. He's also in the Gunsmith Discord. You are in the Gunsmith Discord, aren't you, Russell?
Yeah, yeah, I am.
Yeah, I thought I'd put you in there a couple of weeks ago. Russell's going to be helping with Gunsmith and getting us to 1.0. And I think we're going to kick off by talking about where we've been since October. It's been many months since our last update on the game, where we wanted to head to 1.0. So we've welcomed Russell into the company and we've done some changes to the way we run our business. We'll get into Gunsmith in a minute, but I wanted to basically just go over with everyone where we've been in the last 5 months, why production slowed down, and kind of what our thought process has been over that time. So I want to just again apologise as to why we had a delay, but as you all know, it has basically been carnage industry wide for the last year or so. Um, this is a multifaceted reason for why we've had a production delay. I've noticed certain things in our company and our sales and our momentum that has spooked me greatly. I think it's probably Steam wide. I think there's a gap in. There's probably a widening rich and poor gap. No, I don't know this. It's not official, but I feel like that could be what's happening. I feel like maybe the gap is widening between who's really successful and who's not online. And we have noticed that there's momentum loss on our games, and we've had to step back and wonder why that is. Is it happening to a lot of people? Is it happening to just us? I don't think it is. I think it's happening to quite a few games. Um, but also, there's a second factor at play, which is, and we were just discussing this a minute ago, Russell, before we obviously had our conversation. We are just doing mic checks and stuff, but um, there's a second factor at play, which is why we keep updating and we don't grow the game. People keep playing the game, and that's great. And people that return, we love providing more updates for you guys. But we launched above 80, and the game has tapered downwards since that point. Now, obviously, all games follow that trajectory um, over time, unless they're a game as a service. And I feel like we have turned to a game as a service. It's 5-year-old game now. We're still adding stuff, and it's almost a victim of its own success to some degree because we wanted to make a huge game, and we did, but it still needs more. And we primarily put the brakes on because we were listening to player feedback and customer feedback saying, "Don't release 1.0 now, polish it." So like we took that seriously, and obviously We've paused 1.0. All the stuff that we want to put in is still being made, but we want to consider why. Why do we push major updates? Why do we push updates to the game, but the dial doesn't nudge? Excuse me. It's a really strange. It's a really strange thing, and we need to work out why it's not nudging. Um, and also, we need to work out how to have our 1.0 where we have a big impact, and it doesn't fall flat. That's been our major concern, which is why we postponed. We don't want it to fall flat. We want it to have an impact because we released, you know, countless. I don't know. It's got to be over 30 updates on this title, um, and we want it to go in the right direction review wise. We want it to go in the right direction growth wise, and we also want our 1.0 to be like a big bang for the game. But we're worried that's not going to happen. So it's probably a good time to bring in Russell, really, because you can kind of bounce some ideas of what I was saying there. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you go for it, man. I'll let you talk for a sec.
Um, I mean, I haven't played as much Gunsmith as you have.
Yeah, naturally.
But it really strikes me as like a really similar to like a Paradox game, like Hoi 4 or Stellaris
Yeah.
or CK3.
Mhm.
And I feel like maybe having some kind of narrative arc like that, like you can like in Hoi 4, you can pick your whether you want to be communist, fascist
Yeah,
or just democratic. I feel like having some kind of story route like that, which brings buffs into the game, could be quite interesting.
yeah.
I don't know how hard that would be to put in.
Have you checked out the notoriety system yet?
A little bit,
Mm.
but
It
I'm not as familiar with it.
Yeah, there is, it touches on what you've just said there, and there's something that we did want to improve on. It's just another like major feature integration that needs to go in.
Hmm.
I think it is on like our 1.0 list to improve on that. Um, the biggest problem with the initial design that we wanted to do with 1.0, sorry, with Gunsmith, was that we put 5 countries in, and then we realized how many countries there were, and also how many countries that other countries export arms to. And we basically were like, okay, we need to get to this eventually. But you know, America, the UK, and all our European countries, right? They export weapons to like everywhere. So it was so hard to be like, right, what countries do we pick to start integrating first?
Yeah,
And like, um, we got this map of the Earth, and we were like, okay, let's break up each country. But then what happened there was we ended up having this situation where it is like almost like Hearts of Iron, where you have every nation state you can pick from almost, and then
hmm,
you not only that, you've got a whole 3D production game on top of it. So we had to pick and choose like how we would basically make
yeah,
that.
there's a lot.
Yeah. So we need to add more countries. I think we need to add like, you know, the African nations, because there's a lot of like illegal arms go there, you know, and we need to add like conflict zones and stuff like that to the game, where you can like exacerbate the situation by sending more arms and like selling stuff to the wrong people. It's just really complicated because we have a staff, not a staff, a like country relations system in the game. So if you do certain things to one country, it will annoy another. Um, Now, let's take for example, Total War. There's a lot of stuff where it says you scroll over and it goes, "Oh, you did this thing to this person, therefore negative or positive consequence."
Yeah,
Um, Now, if we go down the road of doing that for Gunsmith, right, we'll be integrating a system where it's like negative or positive consequence for more factions than in a Total War game. So it's a huge amount, if you see what I mean.
yeah.
Um, so again, it's naivety of our first game. But like I was saying to you, we've been doing it for 5 years before we even started this little talk, Russell. So it's um, it's one of these things where we are basically in the Paradox territory, but we do not have the Paradox team.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
where like they've got a whole floor of people working on the Hearts. I kind of need a whole floor of people working on Gunsmith, but we don't have it. We got like 5, so we need to pick and choose our battles. But I feel like to get it to where it's got to be, we probably do need to do that to some degree. Um, it's just about getting it there and having the impact. And we've discussed this before. We've discussed this days before. Like, how do we get the impact we need? Most importantly, how do we get the game to continue to grow? And I think one of the things, and this touches back on why we haven't done 1.0 yet and why we pause things. One of the things that um, we need to do in future, and this is as a business, and this is like as an indie company growing, which I think we've learned, is that um, I think now, and this is only with experience, the early access um, the early access launch cycle needs to be quite brutal in terms of, and this is for the best outcome for everyone, because Gunsmith performed far better than we expected it to do when we launched. And it was our first IP, it was our first indie title, it was our first like, okay, here we go, you know. And we were broke, we were totally broke when we launched that game. So when we made some decent money off of it, we were like, oh, we can do whatever we want, we got all the money in the world, we got all the time in the world. But actually we had not experienced that before. So we started feature creeping, and we started like scope creeping, and then we've basically got into like a mess where it's like, oh my god, okay, that we've done all of these things and they're all really great, but what it means is we've ballooned the game to a certain size, but with no end trajectory in sight. Um, if you take the original game that we launched in early access and where we are now, there are games that have gone into 1.0 3 times over with less features, right? So we just haven't said it's 1.0, but there's still polish to be had. There's still some content to add, but I think the best experience we can take from launching that title, and in some degree Junk Punk, is that we measure its initial success on the launch. We then commit to an exact date of production, and we go 1.0 will be coming out on this date right at the beginning, and that's something that I think we've learned and we'll do in future. But it's just one of those things you learn with experience, really. But it's a double-edged sword, because we have worked on it for 5 years, and I don't think it would be where it is today if we didn't. If we 1.0'd it after a year's worth of work, and we were like, these are the things going in, and that's 1.0, then I think you wouldn't have all the stuff you have in today, right? Like the vehicles, all of the different customizables. I think there's over 500 items to craft, buildable factories, all of that kind of stuff. They're just massive, gargantuan features that were added. So really, it's about adding those last features, planning it correctly, but also moving the dial. I don't feel like I would personally be happy unless Gunsmith was at least in the solid 80s when it's 1.0. I think it doesn't do the game justice, if I'm honest. So that's what I want to achieve. That's what we want to achieve, I think, as a team. But I'll throw it back to you for a sec, Russell.
Yeah, I think having played a little bit of it, there is a huge amount of content. I can see exactly what you mean. By how you said it got ballooned. I think it has to be a careful selection of what to bring out next. I will definitely be going through the Steam reviews and community feedback and stuff like that to see what people want. But yeah, the way you said that this is like a Hoi 4 type game without the Hoi 4 type team, I can completely see that.
Yeah. Because what we also, that's the main thing is that we did want the country relations, and obviously you have that kind of thing, like you have factions in Total War, you've got the different countries in Hearts and all this kind of stuff, and we want them to interact together. But then you also have the manufacturing thing. It's like taking Hearts, and it's like where you just place down factories, military factories or civilian factories, and it's like, okay, now open up an individual military factory in Hearts, right? And then you micromanage that factory. That's what essentially I would say it's probably like. Is Gunsmith is probably turned into that. It's like you've got all these different Hearts factories that you can go into, right? And then you can manage exactly what they're producing on that level. So what I guess we need to find is if you reverse Hearts, and we go, okay, you just build a factory in Hearts and it makes whatever you want, whether it be the vehicles, the weapons, the planes, whatever. Flip it, and we have to do that kind of, okay, Gunsmith does the world stuff on a basic level, then the factory stuff on an intense level. Whereas with Hearts, if you reverse it, it does the world stuff on a very intense level, the factory stuff on a more basic level, where you just build a factory, it ticks over and it does its thing. So I think like what we need to do, and this is just totally just thinking out loud here, I think what we need to do is find that kind of how does the world function in Gunsmith, and keep that on a more basic level, and not dive too deep, because I can see that being another rabbit hole where it's going to take us too long. So that's the kind of gameplay thing I think we need to hit there, to be honest.
Do you have any like core gameplay ideas that you want to be releasing for 1.0?
Well, we wanted to basically do a system where we had that kind of world influence, and then people would try and basically stop you. They would even send people to the factory, a bit like Evil Genius. I don't know if you ever played that game, Russell.
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah, so in Evil Genius, you commit crimes, and the more crimes you commit, agents will come to your like evil lair and try and destroy it. Again, I think that's a rebellion game, so a huge budget, and so like I pick easy targets, but so like. We wanted to have the world thing, so a bit like a Heart's consequence with relationships, and then also the kind of Evil Genius stuff. But they're just two massive features. But I think that would round the game off nicely. and then obviously the end game of how you get out. And have you ever seen the film Lord of War?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so this game is actually kind of based on that too. There's a little Nick Cage Easter egg in the game as one of the clients. But yeah, so how you get out of the scenario is the end game. Do you get out in a good way? Do you get out in a bad way? I think those are the things that need to go in. That we focus on the world, we focus on the repercussions, and maybe we have some kind of agents that we bring into the game, all focused around that core manufacturing base, and then to end the game rather than it just tapering out because you've built everything. It's kind of like Tropico's a good one actually. I remember one of the Tropico games. It might be in all of them. I can't remember, but you would start a nest egg, and it was like you would start funneling money away to end that game, and you could either be thrown out by a rebellion or you could leave with like all the money in the world, basically. So it's kind of like a multi.
Yeah, I quite like that.
It's an end. What do you call it? Like a multi-choice ending.
Yeah.
So I think like we need to settle on those things, and then. But I think we've myself and Ed have discussed this loads, and obviously it's kind of mine and Ed's baby, and we're bringing Russell in to help us now because I think also, I will say I think we probably have a bit of game fatigue when it comes to Gunsmith. We've worked on that project now for 5 years. I think one of the main reasons why I've got Russell to help us is also because I want a fresh set of eyes on the game, and I also want to have someone have just as much enthusiasm as I had right at the start to work on it again. Because if you think anyone working on any project for 5 years, the motivation's not going to be as heavy as when you kick off. And I think from my perspective, I've realised that I'm very good at starting good ideas and getting projects going and doing a ton of groundwork and getting that idea off the ground. But I need support on the tail end of it. Do you see what I mean, Russell, as well?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Because it takes such a huge amount of energy to take nothing. You just got no idea whatsoever. You come up with the idea, you make the plan, and then you put it into full production. By the time you've got that into a production situation and it's actually selling, you're pretty much blown. Like you need a lot of time off, I think. And this is also, it goes back to like game industry stuff where there's a lot of burnout. Some studios that just burn out staff like crazy. And I think probably you've realised you've not been here particularly long, but we don't really run a stressful environment here as much as possible. It's quite relaxed.
It is very, very relaxed, yeah.
But
I think that's a better environment to work in, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, like obviously when we're doing Gunsmith and Junk Punch to some degree, when the team was smaller, the work intensity was way higher. So I think we need basically more people to come on board and help us and just take some of that heavy lifting away. And again, like you've already gone through Junk Punk and identified some really cool stuff, which I'm in total agreement with, and we're going to start making it and putting it out there. And I think you'll probably come up with the same thing with Gunsmith, if I'm honest, because you're a fresh set of eyes and you have the enthusiasm to go spend loads of time on it and actually push it forward and help us push it over the line, which I think is important at this stage. That's kind of it's a bit of a longer update, but I think it's necessary because we've been away for a while. And just touching on like the industry and where we are at, it has been such an incredibly tough year. 2023 and 2024 I think will still be a tough year. There's been a massive contraction in the industry. I think sales are down like across the board unless you're an outlier like like Power World or like one of these games that's just gone completely nuclear. And if you're an indie developer, feel free to chime in on this, but I think that people do not have as much money as they used to have, and they are not purchasing as many games, and they're saving it for a select few, which is also why I feel that there's a widening gap between sales of people doing really well because people are barreling in on the game that has got the massive hype, but they're reserving their money for that purchase.
Yeah, I
which means
completely agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, which means that for early access games like us, they're probably a bit more like, we don't know about that, and it might go on the maybe list. But the maybe list is like not a good list to be on as an indie developer. So we've had to change how we operate the business basically in order to survive. But we're in nearly year 11 now, so I think we're doing pretty well. We already are past a 5 year, like 98% failure rate or something like that, which is crazy. I don't know if you knew this, Russell, but I think it's something. I may be wrong, but it's a very high number of businesses, especially in video games, will fall within 5 years. It's like
I did not know that.
it's like over 90% basically.
Wow.
Yeah, so we push through the 5 year, and the 10 year is even lower. So the fact that we're past that, I think, is good. It means that we've got the business acumen to at least not go completely bankrupt, which is nice. But we have got announcements to make about how we're going to run the company and what we're doing in the future, and we'll make that known when we can. There's a lot of stuff in progress to make that announcement, which is also why we've been a bit quiet, because we've been essentially restructuring the business. But we've had to do it every day. I think literally yesterday again I saw another studio's gone, everyone's fired, and the layoffs continue, the finances drying up, and it's tough. So I have had to do what I've had to do to keep the business afloat, and I have no regrets on doing that. But I think that's just the ups and downs of running any company, really. We're going through a massive shock right now, and I'm just happy that we've restructured the company in a way that means that we're okay. So yeah, that's just another reason why we've had to slow down, and we've had to, as a business, look at why we put, like I say, we push updates, we add content, and we need to grow. And I think the market's even more competitive now. There's more games than ever, and what we can't do, and I know this sucks for everyone who wants more updates, and you want the game to be finished and all of this. What I can't do, and we've really kind of seen this, both statistically and just like from a business perspective, we can't just keep throwing out content and spending thousands on content and then nothing happens. It's just it's almost kind of like this cult approach of how to do it, but actually from a business perspective it's really dangerous, and I can understand why a lot of indie companies blow up, because they just go commit, and then they're just in financial ruin basically. So we've needed to stop and work out, okay, how do we get the traction back? How do we increase sales? How do we actually become a profitable company that we can keep putting? And I won't lie, we've been profitable for many years. We've lost some years, we've been in profit for some years. But how do we also now make it sustainable as an indie company? And these are all questions that you just don't ask when you're making an indie title, or even two indie titles. You just don't ask these questions. You just go, oh, let's just make a cool game, and you just plow a ton of money into it and ton of time into it, and you just hope it does well. But actually, over the years, I've realised that we can't do that, and it's not sustainable. So we have to come up with actual business models to make sure that our games are sustainable, our games generate decent revenue, and they're growing. And then the most important factor of all is that our customers like them. Because I draw the line at basically, oh, we're making loads of money, but the game is received poorly. I just don't ever want that to happen. I'd rather make less money, but the game is received well. So it's about that fine balance. And I think that's probably where, I don't know, I probably said everything I need to say there, really. But I'm hoping this year we can ramp up production again, increase the speed of Gunsmith's updates, most importantly release impactful updates to drive it in the right direction. Because I know you haven't been on board with us for long, Russell, but I'm kind of getting sick of dropping huge updates and then the dial doesn't move.
Yeah.
I want that to start happening. I want people to be enjoying the game more, and I want us to have more confidence that the updates we're dropping they're going to be impactful. And yeah, it's really tricky to think about all these things and balance them all. And I'm hoping in future we can get it right quicker, and we can deploy updates faster that are more impactful, and the right updates at the right time. But it's all a massive like nuance, and it's a dance that has to be like choreographed really precisely, and I'm hoping that over the course of 2024 we can get that choreography right, and we can drop those updates that are way better, more impactful, get people playing the game again, and just getting things headed in the right direction. And I totally think we can do that, but it's just about analysing the impact of all of that. But yeah, I've just noticed that I've now been ranting for nearly half an hour, so I'll pass it back over to you, Russell, then I guess we'll kind of finish it up, really, because otherwise it'll be a bit too long, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered everything.
Yeah.
From what I can see, just first observations, this game is like, it's almost there. But the changes that need to come in now have got to be, just as you said, they've got to be impactful and also boost sales, to be completely honest.
Yeah. That's the thing. That is, unfortunately, we didn't have to worry about them for a while. But it was doing really well. But like, I've always, and I said this to you when you joined, we've always reinvested the money immediately back into the game. We haven't, at no point have we ever been like, oh, we're going to take half of the money and just plow it into our own bank accounts. We've always just been like, okay, cool, this gives us 4 months, let's make this new thing, update, amazing, it's gone well, this gives us another 4 months, let's make this thing. So, but then obviously when you incur that momentum loss and you go, okay, we've released this update and okay, it hasn't given us another 4 months, what do we do now? This kind of changes things, and we've had these big chunky updates go out and we've put a lot of money into them, but then all of a sudden we have this situation where it's like, oh, okay, this isn't going up, it's going down. But that's very normal for a lot of games, right? But it's just, how do we manage that, and ultimately how do we turn it around? I could easily, I'm sure, pull up some information that would show like 99.999% of games, they have a launch trajectory, they launch well, they generate income, people support them with updates, but over time they taper down. But I don't think that model is applicable. I think it's just the fact, I think you can definitely get it growing. I see games growing every day, all the time, you know. It's about how we get that formula, and that's how we need to that's where we need to improve on, so that we can again invest more money into the title, you know. And it's just about cracking that you know, that problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like, where do you start, really? Because do we start with an update? Do we start with I think I want you to go get more feedback like you did for Junk Punk, 'cause I think that's done really well, and that has led to us going, okay, what's a good impactful update that we can have for the game, and you know, what do we want to do, a small update, a big update, etc. And I think we've decided that now for Junk Punk, and we're putting it into production. But I think we now need to do a similar thing for Gunsmith. And also, lastly as well, we'll touch on like the fact that you know, when we launched Gunsmith, it was so much easier to just get people to play the game. Like, we just sent it out. I just email people. Me and Ed just email people, and it was like, okay, cool. Let's just email out. Everyone's happy with this. We were getting responses from large creators, almost the same day, if not like that week, and they're like, cool, yeah, I'll check it out. And then they would play it, and then it'd be on YouTube, and it'd be like, wow, cool, 1 million views, job done, everyone knows our game's there. Now I can email like 50 people and just no one replies, because they're just overwhelmed, and so it's a whole nother like level of traffic and noise that we just have to cut through. And I think, being totally honest, over the last couple of years as a business, we've been doing okay, but we have not noticed the speed in which the market has changed. And by that I'm talking, being able to get hold of content creators is really hard now. Being able to get your game shown on YouTube is really hard now. If you want to sponsor it, it's not cheap. If you want to get a feature on Steam, it's even harder. They've changed it to be more of a social media site as well. So like, you put out news, you're doing streams and stuff like that. So I think the rate of change for a developer has been extremely fast too. And I think the days of just making a product and emailing out and then putting it on Steam and hoping it does well, I think they're over. I think there's just purely anomaly cases now, like really, really specific anomalies, you know.
Yeah.
So that only leaves you one option. We have to build a sustainable business in order to continue to update in a good fashion, you know. But none of that's a bad thing. It's all good. It means that we have more stability as an indie company. It means hopefully we won't have to make layoffs. It means we can continue updating games. I think the reality is just over the last 5 or 6 months, we've had to make a big decision on how we run an actual development company. And I think that's probably quite natural for any company that's growing and any company that wants to have a good trajectory, right? And that's probably rounds up my why we've been away for months. But I feel it's necessary. I know this is longer than it should be, but I kind of feel it's necessary to explain to the community where we are. And I know there's been quite a few times where we were working on major updates before, and it's been months and months and months in between those updates. And I've always said, like, we're going to finish the game, and we will have more updates coming out for it. But it's just been a crazy time in the industry, a crazy time for our business, and we've had to dig deep and just get through this period. And I think we're through it. I hope we're through it. Anyway. So now we can focus back on trying to get our games in the right trajectory, basically. But yeah, anything you want to add, Russell?
No, I think you've covered everything.
Yeah. Hopefully in the next thing, Russell will do some more talking. But I feel like I did want you on this call on this kind of like interview. I don't know what we're going to call them. Are they podcasts? Are they calls? Are they conferences?
Podcast. It sounds like a podcast.
It kind of is getting podcast left now, isn't it? I kind of feel like I owe everyone an explanation as to where we're at and what's been going on.
Yeah, that's completely fair. That is completely fair. And at the same time with Gunsmith, I haven't had as much experience to really give my proper takes on it.
Yeah. But yeah, for what it's worth, like I can see that there are a vocal minority saying, like, "Oh, game's dead," etc. If a game is dead, I'll just say it's dead. So unless I say it is, it's not. Basically, there's even some people that are like, on the very first game I made, Prospect, they're like, "Oh, it's dead." No, I haven't updated that game for ages, but it's not dead because as soon as I get some spare time, which may not be for a while, but as soon as I do, and the stars align, and I can get the right people on that game, I even want to update that game again. Because we got some really talented C++ programmers now, and that game's all hard C++, and I can do what I want to do with that game now. So yeah, even if you're here and listening and you had that game, I've locked my fiance out of our house, so I'm gonna have to end this now. Many updates to come.
That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, that is a good way to end it. I've got to go. Everyone. She's calling me, but thank you for your patience, and there'll be updates for Gunsmith soon. And I'll end it here, alright? Cool. Right, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.